Rumi isn't just grieving personally. She's the one holding the line. She's fighting the demons, both literal and metaphorical. She's keeping everything glued together.
Welcome to Grief is the New Normal. I'm Dr. Heather Taylor, a licensed psychologist and grief specialist, here to help change the conversation about grief and build community and connection while we all adjust to this new normal we are living in. This podcast is for you if you are grieving or if you are supporting someone in a season of grief. I'm glad you're here.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to Grief is the New Normal. I'm Dr. Heather Taylor, grief psychologist, educator, and someone who will 100% cry over a well-written animated character, especially if she's a demon hunter in a K-pop girl group. Yes, you heard me right. Today, we are talking about grief, secrets, shame, and the Netflix animated special K-pop Demon Hunters, a sparkly fever dream of a story that hit me right in the grief therapist feels, because under the sequins, the choreography, the supernatural showdowns, this story is dripping with themes we don't talk about enough. The grief of being misunderstood, the grief of hiding part of yourself, the grief of pretending to be okay when you're not. So let's talk about what it means to grieve in the shadows, wear the mask, and what happens when your body, your voice, even your joy starts carrying the cost of keeping secrets. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Rumi. She is our main character. On the outside, she is fierce. She is flawless. She is front and center in a chart-topping girl group that slays demons and she sells out arenas. I mean, they describe her as, pop star royalty. It's just this natural part of who she is, right? This external mask she wears, that facade. But inside, she's grieving, and not just one loss, but layered grief, the kind of grief that stacks, that compounds, the kind that doesn't always have a clean timeline or a helpful stage-based model, because we don't do the stage models, right? So let's break it down. So first, we have the grief of losing her mom. One of the quietest but most profound threads in the story is the loss of her mom. And it's not flashy grief, it's just real grief. It's the kind of loss that doesn't just hurt, it reshapes you. Her mom was her tether, her compass, her witness, and now that tether's gone. How many of us have experienced that kind of grief? Not just missing someone, but missing being seen by them, missing the version of you that only existed when they were around. It's a loss of a relationship and a loss of identity. And yes, she has her aunt, and it's a different dynamic than that of her mom. And, we can fill in the pieces on our own of what that might have looked like if mom would have accepted, her patterns or helped her understand them, embrace them, those aspects of self. It's a different relationship having been raised by her aunt. Okay, number 2, the grief of her secret self, right? Rumi's body has magical patterns on it. I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything for anyone because that's revealed within like the first 10 minutes of the show. The thing is, she hides them, right? Even from her friends. She is coached by her aunt to hide those parts of herself. Now, spoiler alert, I think this is our first grief metaphor, right? Those markings, those are those things that we keep on the inside that is reflected in her skin. That can be your diagnosis, your trauma history, your gender identity, your chronic illness, your neurodivergence, your queerness, your grief, your not so pretty coping mechanisms. And, it could be a number of things, right? Fill in the blank. What are those things within ourselves that we hide from those around us out of fear of being misunderstood or rejected or shunned? She's not just scared of being seen. She's grieving the reality that she hasn't felt safe to share that part of herself. So she's carrying this grief of not being known, the grief of choosing disconnection to avoid rejection. I think of that scene where, they go to the spa and like, why don't you ever come with us, from her friends? And she's trying to talk with her aunt about like, just maybe they'll understand, maybe it won't freak them out. And she's like, no, like nobody can know. And once you defeat all the demons, or, lock in, once you make all the patterns golden, then like all the demons will be gone and it'll be fine. And the patterns will go away and we'll never have to know about it. How many times in our day to day do we feel like, well, if I just ignore it long enough, it'll just go away? There's also like the grief of self-abandonment in exchange for proximity. Let's flesh that one out a bit. So rather than honoring herself, she is trading that in. She is stuffing all of that down to have closeness, this false closeness, because the people in her innermost circle don't really know the real her. They don't get to see her full self and accept all of that. And let's be real, like these are types of grief so many people carry quietly, especially these days. Depending where you live in our country, you might have to hide aspects of yourself to feel safety. And there's grief there, grief that I can't be out in a way that feels authentic, that the people closest to me could see, respect, appreciate, celebrate. Yeah. So I thought there was such a powerful metaphor in those patterns on her. And then number 3, we have the grief of disconnection while in community. So Rumi is with her best friends.
Rumi's magic is literally
on
taking
stage,
her voice,
in rehearsals,
and that's again
backstage,
that's not
even.
subtle, it's a
But
metaphor.
emotionally, she's alone. I think, in that opening scene when they're singing the Golden Song, like we really see how disconnected she is. There's that wall between her on one side covering up in that robe and her best friends on the other, like free with their bodies and connected and, laughing and seeming lighter. And that, my friends, is like one of the hardest kinds of grief, being physically surrounded and emotionally invisible. You can be in a marriage, a friendship, a family, a team, and still feel that ache of loneliness. That's not failing, that's disconnection. And it is heavy to carry. And then, we have the grief of performance, right? That hits so hard. Remy is literally performing joy while holding pain. And if that's not the most accurate summary of what we ask grievers to do in our culture, I don't know what is. Smile for the photo, don't make Thanksgiving awkward. Let's just celebrate. Don't bring everyone down. Meanwhile, you're like, cool. I'm dying inside. I'm in so much pain, but let's carve that turkey. This story shows us the cost of that performance. When your body is carrying what your words can't say, your voice goes quiet. Your nervous system gets dysregulated. Your joy gets dimmed. Rumi's magic is literally taking her voice. And that's not subtle. It's metaphor. When we hide what's real, we lose access to our voice, our power, our truth. And then, we have the grief of responsibility, right? Being the quote unquote strong one. This responsibility grief is just another layer to add to the mix, right? She isn't just grieving personally. She's the one holding the line. She's fighting the demons, both literal and metaphorical. She's keeping everything glued together. She's the strong one, the protector, the reliable one, the leader. And that role, it's isolating. So when you're the one others count on, who do you get to count on? Who do you look up to? Who's there for you to lean on? So if you've ever grown up too fast, taken on adult burdens as a kid, kept it all together for the sake of your team, your work, your family, your community, you know this grief. It's that grief of never being allowed to fall apart. I see this a lot in a lot of caregiving roles too, especially when there's someone who's dependent on you to take care of them. Like, you're not allowed to fall apart. You have to be so on all the time. Remy has to be on all the time. She doesn't get to take the mask off and just, like, it's Zoe and Mira who are all about couch time. Let's go to the spa. Let's unplug. And Rumi is always on and thinking about those next steps. Well, what do we need to do to get there? What do we need to do next? And she's not able to relax, to take that leadership mantle off. And it's so isolating carrying all of that. So putting all of that together, let's call it what it is, right? Shame is the roommate grief didn't ask for, but somehow moved in anyways. So when you don't know how to talk about your pain, when you feel like you're too much or worrying about being judged for what you're carrying, you start hiding, and hiding can become a habit, right? Yes, what's a potential coping strategy? We're doing it for safety. We're doing it because we're worried that we're going to be too much and overwhelm the people around us. And yet, the more we hide, the more disconnected we feel. The more disconnected you feel, the harder it is to reach out. And we might feel disconnected from our family groups, our support groups, or even ourselves. And it can become this shame, grief, isolation spiral. So if you're listening and thinking, okay, I am Rumi. You are not alone. You're not alone. Here are some reflection questions for you or for your next journaling session, therapy appointment, or walk with your dog. What part of your identity are you grieving right now? What truth about yourself have you been keeping hidden? Where in your life are you performing strength while quietly unraveling? What would it feel like to stop pretending, even just for a moment, even with just one person? Which leads into the last reflection question: who might be safe enough to witness your truth? And if no one comes to mind yet, that's okay. Let's shift into talking about how do we build that bridge. All right. So everyone knows Heather loves a good metaphor. Love a good metaphor. And I also love to ground it in practical, research back ways that help us move through grief, not just sit in it, because citations matter, science matters, yay, science. So here are some tools for when you're grieving in secret. The first is naming what you're hiding. We say it, we whisper it, we write it, even if it's just to yourself or a journal or a voice memo you delete after. Naming creates space, and space creates possibility. We can't tame it till we name it. So if we're able to bring that into the world, into awareness, there's power there. There's that space for possibility. Number 2, body check-ins. Grief and shame live in the body. So take 60 seconds to ask yourself, where am I holding tension? And can I release even 2% of it? Can, touch something grounding, name what you see, do some box breathing where you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, and just do that over and over again. Doing like the guiding light body scans, like noticing what's coming up for you in your body. Where are you holding it? And then do something to help orient, squish your feet in your shoes, doing the 5 sense countdown, things like that. Number 3, so let's talk narrative repair. You can write a letter from the version of you who knows you're doing your best. Or imagine that from the perspective of, like, if I was going to write my best friend a letter and this is what I know they would need to hear or what I would want them to hear, and use that as a tool. The other thing to think about too is coming up with some cue phrases within that narrative repair. I think when we've experienced grief or trauma or shame, we can get stuck into those old patterns of thinking because those are really well-worn trails in our brain, right? So something that I find helpful is when I'm stuck in that like fear, shame spiral loop, I look at my partner and I'm like, hey, I need you to tell me the things. And it's that I'm on your team. We're going to get through this. I believe in you. And then they give me a hug. And that's really grounding and orienting for me. It's super helpful just having those verbal cues. And it's just something that we've developed over time that's been really helpful. And then last thing, practice small truths. You don't have to share everything. I know that we live in a world where so much personal information and details are online and public, and people share all sorts of minute details about ourselves. You don't have to share everything. Just because someone follows you does not mean that they are entitled to all of that information about you. And is there one small truth you can share with one safe person? I remember when I was back in undergrad, I worked for Barnes & Noble. Shout out to Barnes & Noble, Spokane Valley. And there were these books called note cards. And what people would do is they'd send in these secrets, these anonymous secrets to this publisher, this book space, and they would publish the collection of these secrets in that book. I didn't understand it at first. And then I realized, oh, there's a lot of freedom in sharing something and seeing it in print, knowing that someone else might relate to it. There's a lot of power in that. That can change a story, seeing that someone else is holding a same truth as you. And it's not pretty, it's ugly, it's painful, it's hard to hold. So as we wrap up today's episode, this is, again, just a quick little mini episode. I might do a follow-up one because I have more things I want to share about this because I think it was so well done. And if you've been fighting demons no one sees, if your grief has made you feel invisible, if you're exhausted from performing fine, please hear this. You are not broken. Your grief deserves room to breathe. You are worthy of connection, even in your mess. And you don't have to sparkle to prove that you are worthy of love. Remy's story is a fantasy, sure, and the emotional landscape of that's real, and it's all of us, right? So today I want to invite you to hop off the stage, even if it's just for one breath, one moment, and try to find a safe way to share one tiny truth, even if it's in the dark, because grief might feel like it's unraveling you, but it's also revealing the parts of you that are still here, still powerful, and still worthy. And you, friend, you are real, you are loved, and you are not alone. So if this episode landed for you, send it to someone who might need it, or feel free to re-listen when the mask gets heavy. Until next time, I'm Dr. Heather Taylor. Remember to be kind to yourselves today, and take care. That's it for today's episode of Grief is the New Normal. If this conversation resonated with you or you think it might benefit someone else, please share it. Sharing can open doors to healing, understanding, and normalizing these griefy conversations. If you're craving deeper insights or ongoing support, consider signing up for the Grief Gap newsletter. It's packed with resources, tips, and personal stories to help you navigate your grief journey. Visit the website www.griefisthenewnormal.com to subscribe. For those who prefer a more personal touch to their healing process, check out my grief journal, Authentically Unapologetic. It's designed to help you explore your grief on your own terms, with prompts and exercises that encourage reflection and growth. I'm Dr. Heather Taylor, and I look forward to our next meaningful conversation. Our soothing tunes are provided by the Datacorns. If you're interested in sharing your story, collaborating, or learning more, please email me at hello@griefisthenewnormal.com. You can also stream the episodes on YouTube for more engaging content. Until next time, keep exploring your grief with intention and support, remembering you don't have to do this alone.